Please be seated. I'm going to make a brief introduction of our guest speaker today. The Reverend, I forgot to say that at 8 o'clock, sorry about that, Monica Romig. She is the priest associate at Christ's Church Cathedral. So she's got a really big job. She has a lot going on. I will just say kind of that much, and then I'm going to let her talk about the unique role she has, in addition to being a priest at that very busy cathedral parish, serving a lot of people, especially in downtown Hamilton, that require a lot of support. Someday, and not today, we'll talk about the cafe that they run on a daily basis, feeding thousands of people each year. It's a huge undertaking, and Monica's very involved in all of that. But in addition to all of that, she has a special role, and that's what she's going to talk. In fact, she's not even going to talk about all of that role, because that would take too long as well. So she's going to talk about one part of that bigger role that she plays, but I want to invite her now to start and speak to you. But we are so pleased that she is here, and we are very honored to have you here. So Monica, the stage is yours. She's a former actor, it's easy to say.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Jeff. Yes, he's right. I am a former, actually child performer in Hollywood, no less. So I feel very comfortable on the stage. I am, besides being the priest associate at the cathedral, I am the faith formation coordinator for the diocese. And what that means is that I encourage the whole diocese simply to grow deeper in their relationship with God. It's a very simple mandate, but I get to be very creative in how I encourage that to happen. So today I'm actually going to talk to you about one of those resources that I call the Grandparents Club, and I'm going to call this Welcoming Jesus Through the Grandparents Club. Okay? So first I'm going to start with a little story. That's me. That's me when I was about 3 or 4 years old. And that is my grandfather. His name, we called him Popo. That's my Popo, my maternal grandfather. And I'm going to tell you what happened when I was that age. So at that time, I grew up in the States, actually in California. We have preschool. You guys have junior kindergarten, but we have preschool before you send kids off to kindergarten. And my mother wanted to send me to preschool. And the preschool she chose was down the road from my grandparents' house across town. So it was very convenient for her to drop me off early in the morning at my grandparents' house and let them take me to preschool. And then they would pick me up, and then she'd come and get me because she was a working mom and she had, my older brother. And so this was a very convenient childcare opportunity, right? Very simple. But this is how I experienced it at 3 and 4 years old. So my mom would come and drop me off at my grandparents' house. And when I walked into the door, I was immediately met with the most delicious smell. It was bacon. My grandfather took the opportunity of this little window of time we had before I had to be in preschool. He would make breakfast for me. And the breakfast consisted of bacon on the out of the skillet, right? So nice and greasy and crispy. He made toast with butter and jam, and he did the most mind-blowing thing. I would have 2 glasses. One had orange juice, and one had milk. 2 glasses. That never happened in my house. It felt so abundant, and every single time I came, there was bacon and that wonderful smell. And he would set the kitchen table, which was pushed up against the wall that faced out a window that looked out onto their front garden and then down onto the street below. And he would set it up that there were 2 spots for breakfast. There was one for me and there was one for him. And he didn't sit across from me. He sat right next to me. And we would sit there and we would look out onto the garden and watch the cars go by on the street. And if you couldn't guess it now, I was a very verbal child. I talked a lot. And it was his delight to just sit with me And I remember eating bacon and eating toast and just saying whatever came to my little mind, yammer, 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 yammer. I think you can see in the photo, he was a big guy. You can tell he's not really smiling because he was a very quiet man. He never gave me advice, he never scolded me, he barely said a word. And he just was with me and he listened to me as I sat there with my grandpa, with my popo. And sometimes I would stop talking, miraculously, and we would just look out at the trees together. Then my grandmother would say, it's time to go. My Nana would say, it's time to go, and I'd go off to preschool. Now, do I remember what happened at preschool? No. But I remember almost every breakfast I had with my popo. I'm sharing this story because I think this was a significant theological, faith-filled foundation for my relationship with God. And I think it ties into our passage today. So, in our gospel passage, Jesus is saying his disciples, he's sending them out into the world. He's sending them to go do the things that Jesus has been doing, releasing people from captivity, sharing with them the good news of God's kingdom. And he says, okay, you guys, go, and they were guys, like the 12 guys, go, and you're gonna go into these towns, and I want you to go into people's homes, and I want you to share everything that I have given you. And as encouragement, he says these words, whoever welcomes you welcomes me, and whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. So the idea is that wherever the disciples went, and if anyone received them, they were receiving Jesus, because Jesus goes with them, right? This, I think, is profound for the story of me and my grandfather, because this is the story of hospitality, right? And if you think of the disciples, they were going to find people to receive them hospitably, right? So you might say, I was the little disciple coming in and receiving my grandfather's hospitality, but it was actually the other way around. My grandfather set the stage so that my little heart received him. He lives in my heart, right? My grandfather and that experience I had with him lives deeply in my heart. And when I received him, my grandfather, a very quiet man of faith, but a man of faith, I don't think he ever talked to me about Jesus. But I received Jesus when I received him into my heart. Because whoever welcomed him, my grandfather, welcomed Jesus. And that was me. Does that make sense? So I'm going to talk about this thing called the Grandparents Club. I wonder if God is inviting all of us, like the disciples, to enter spiritually into other people's hearts, in particular our grandchildren's hearts, or rather, if you don't have grandkids, these would be kids that you're not currently raising, right? If you're raising a kid, you've got different responsibilities with them. But these are kids who you love and can come alongside, right? Who are not in your home. So this could be grandkids. These could be nieces and nephews. These could be great-grandkids. These could be members of the church community, right? Are there young people in your life that God might be inviting you, like the disciples, to enter into their hearts, so that when you go there, Jesus goes there with you? And what if there was some sort of guidance or encouragement for us to live into that kind of call? This is why I want to offer to you this wonderful resource. Look, I'm biased. I wrote it. I think it's wonderful. This resource that I worked very hard on, called the Grandparents Club. It's a small group resource meant for three things: for personal spiritual growth, to encourage subsequent generations in their spiritual growth, and for relational connection between people. And I'm going to break those down for you. So imagine a small group that meets regularly for over 8 times, however frequently they want to meet, okay? And the first thing that they'll get out of this is personal spiritual growth. The idea behind the Grandparents Club is it's for people who want to get closer to God. Now, Grandparents Club, that means we're at least in our second half of life, right? And that, okay, but why that second half of life? Aren't we already settled in our faith? Well, actually, the call of Jesus is to all of us to constantly grow as disciples, no matter how long we've known Jesus, no matter how long we've been attending church. The call is to continue growing in our faith. And to be clear, there are not many resources written specifically for people in their second half of life. There are a lot more resources written for people who are young in their lives and in their faith. Ways to sort of figure out who they are, what their identity is, how to serve, right? To find out who they are as people. But that's not the call of second half of life. The call of second half of life spirituality is to get really deep with God, really honest, to sort of cast off the things that we think make us who we are and get back down to the core of who we actually are, someone who is loved by God. And so this is a resource that's specifically designed to help draw people in their second half of life closer to God. It has some exercises that help people grow in their faith that way. So that's the first thing that the Grandparents Club offers. The next thing that it offers is this idea of encouraging subsequent generations. You see, all of us are called to be missional, right? We're called to come alongside others out in the world. And I thought, well, who better to practice being missional with than these dear ones we love, these children, youth, even young adults? Because they are hungry for guidance and love from caring adults. I'm going to tell you a secret that's out in plain sight that I don't know why we don't talk about this more, but social science has proved this, that children are born hardwired for spirituality. They're hardwired to have a deep love relationship with their Creator. It just is. Kids from 0 to 10 are having a relationship with God, with nature, with animals that's very deep. You know, there's a reason why Jesus said a little child will lead them, because they're very close to God. But they can lose that capacity if it's not nurtured in those first 10 years. And what's interesting is in the second 10 years, what we call youth, right? From 10 to about 20. Remember the Sturm und Drang of that, the stress of being an adolescent, the kinds of questions that you used to ask or that you've been asked from the young people? It's been found that if you frame that all as a spiritual quest, it helps young people develop that sense of confidence, identity, understanding, a sense of something beyond themselves, right? That they're called for something great. But they need mentors. They need people to come alongside them and encourage them. I like to say, for you Star Wars fans, they need a Yoda for their Luke Skywalker, right? To help them train into a Jedi. They don't do the training. They just sit there and say, you might want to go into that cave, right? And then even young adults who are starting off in their lives, there are always these opportunities, these major life changes that open their hearts to those questions, those deep questions of meaning of life. These are all wonderful opportunities for someone who is deeper in their faith and understanding of God to simply come alongside and walk next to them. Because get this, if you've been walking with God a long time, you are rich in faith and experience and wisdom. But as my grandfather will note for you in that story, you don't even need to share all of that. You just need to be there, right? And love well. The third thing that the Grandparents Club is intended to offer is relational connection. We live in such a fragmented world. There's so many people that are feeling lonely and isolated, that this is a wonderful opportunity to bring people together and to encourage one another, right? It's a place to share sort of the burdens on your heart and have people pray for you, and then vice versa, you pray for others. I actually thought of the Grandparents Club when I was going from church to church, and I was finding some churches, not this one, but some churches that were like, you know, we've had our best days. They're behind us. And I thought, no. You people are rich with so much spiritual depth. This is what second half of life is supposed to be about. We're supposed to be going deep and offering blessings to the world. And I thought, where your treasure is, that's where your heart is. And what do a lot of older folks treasure? Their grandkids, right? It's also sometimes their heartbreak. They don't necessarily know what to do about these kids who are far away or who don't seem to have any interest in your faith. Well, let me encourage you to know that actually you still have a role to play. You still have seeds that you can sow in their life that you may never see come to fruition. But it's your job to sow the seeds. Now, these are the topics that get covered in the Grandparents Club. I'm just throwing these out there in case any of these interest you. So prayers of spiritual elders, what does it mean to pray for younger people? Spiritual journeys of children and youth. We go a bit deeper into what it means for children and youth spirituality means. You'll have a chance to review your own life story and your own spiritual journey. It's helpful to track for ourselves how our spiritual journey went. I think some people think I was brought to church and I became a Christian. But if you really map it out, you find that you had moments of questions, and suddenly your life starts to look not so different from the lives of the young people around you. You start to remember what it's like. And it's also just really rich for your growth pattern, right? We talk about growing as a spiritual elder, what it means to live into second half of life spirituality. And then we talk a lot about what it means to come alongside young people in their spiritual journeys, to kind of be like my grandfather who sits there, or to open up a conversation that's more spiritual. We talk about leaving a spiritual legacy, and we talk about giving and being a blessing. Because that's the role of the spiritual elder, is to bless. And this world is hungry to be blessed. And we bless because we see and we know and we desire the good for people. All right? And the last part, continuing the journey, it's a club. It's kind of like meant to be a book club. You do a little something before, you read a little something, and then you come together, you do an activity. And the question is, after this is done, do you want to keep going? So, let me share a little bit about what the Grandparents Club is not, because some people have some questions about that. And here goes my mic. I'm going to try and... Is it up here that's the problem? We good? No? We don't know. Hold on, everybody. There. Are we good? We'll try. Okay, so I want to explain a little bit about what the Grandparents Club is not, because some people hear this and they go, I'm not going to proselytize to my grandkids. It's not about proselytizing. I promise. It's not about arguing with or having to preach to non-believers. That's not what this is about at all. It's also not a place, by the way, to complain about the state of church today or how things used to be. Or yearn about like, oh, we used to have 50 kids in Sunday school. Like, that's not what it's about either. It's about, we're past that. We're moving forward into the future where young people are today. And finally, it's not a guarantee that your grandkids will become baptized or become church-believing, like church-attending Christians. I can't guarantee any of that. That's not kind of the point of this. The point instead is if you're a person in your second half of life who wants to grow in your own spiritual relationship with God, and if you want to learn how you might be able to support the spirituality of younger people and follow them on what their journey looks like and support them in that by giving words that you have because of your faith, and if you want to connect with others in your same stage of life, if you really want to leave a spiritual legacy, and if you're open to trying and learning new things, that's what the Grandparents Club is about and who it's for. Okay? So, if I've piqued your interest at all in this interesting resource, next steps. Well, first you can pray. I always start with prayer. I am the faith formation coordinator. Prayer is the grounding of everything. Ask God if you think this is right for you, or perhaps you know somebody who you think this could be good for. And then talk to your rector about the Grandparents Club when it might be offered here. You can also talk to me. After this, I'll be in fellowship with you all. I'll be at a table. I'll have copies of the Grandparents Club if you want to look through it. But ask about it. See if it works. And then also consider whom to invite, whether it's folks in the church or actually it's been written for Christians, but you can do it with people of other denominations. You can do it with folks in your community, because a lot of people have young people on their hearts that they really want to support. Okay? So let's get back to my breakfasts with my popo, because I want to give you the full picture of why this is so meaningful to me. I think my grandfather gave me the most profound opportunity to have an understanding of who God is at a young age. He set a table before me. He gave me a feast. And then you see what a big guy he is, right? He was like 6'3", big barrel chest. He was a big guy. Worked in manual labor, right? So strong. And my little self, he never lorded it over me. He sat next to me. He didn't sit over me. He served me. He listened to me. He let me prattle on about whatever. But he was attentive to me in everything that I said. I knew he listened. He wasn't just sitting there. He was amused by me. He was delighted by me. He sat with me and we looked on the beauty of creation together. I can't think of a better image as a little kid that I could have had for how God relates to all of us. And it came from my popo. So, remember, whoever welcomes you, Jesus said, welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. As we all consider what God might be calling us to do and who to serve and who to bring Jesus to, thank you for this time with you, and I'd like to end in a short prayer. Gracious God, we thank you so much for the elders in our lives who encouraged us, who sowed seeds into us, who gave us gifts that eventually flowered into the faith we have with you. We thank you for all those you bring to us who bring you with them. And God, if you're calling us to do the same for others, we pray that you would make that clear and that you would guide our path as we encourage the generations that follow us in their spiritual journey, in their walks. I thank you for the people of St. Cuthbert's, and I pray your blessing upon them. And it's in Jesus' name that I pray. Amen.